MA.
Hello and welcome to our special series Financing the Future. Today we are going to discuss how to prepare for a bank amalgamation, and we have perhaps three of the stalwarts in that space. We have Mr. PS Jayakumar, the Managing Director of Bank of Baroda, a person who has just gone through a successful public sector bank merger, merged eDena and eVijaya into BOB. We have with us V. Vaidyanathan, who represents the private sector, also a king of a merger, having put IDFC Bank and Capital First together into a bank. And we have with us Mr. Rajkiran Rai, Managing Director of Union Bank, who is at the moment going through the process of merging two banks into Union Bank as well. So people in three different stages and in a way a different strata of amalgamation. Gentlemen, thank you very much for joining me.
Thank you.
Since there's private and public who have already gone through a merger, let me start with that. Mr. Jayakumar, what were the first steps you took when you knew that you had to go through this merger?
Okay, stepping back a little bit, we had a discussion earlier with the government on the banks that would be chosen for this amalgamation with us. And so it was all the financials and everything else was worked through much prior to the announcement itself. So it was a series of steps, it's not one step. We had to do parallelly many things. I think of all the things that was most important for us is to get the communication correct, not only from me but from both Shankar Narayan, who was heading eVijaya Bank, and Karnam Shekhar was looking at Indian Overseas Bank. So all three of us had to get to a consistent communication. So that's how we started. Getting a common theme so that we are all consistent in what we say is very important for the credibility of the process itself. So we got that as the first thing right, and then a lot of other things followed from there.
Okay. What is the next? I mean, is it technology? Is it, what is the next most important thing?
So there were three things we looked at as simultaneously being important. The first was that the combined organization should have a reinvented purpose, mission. What is that? And getting that is very important. So the way we went about it was there are a bunch of people who spoke to all the leaderships of all the three banks, and then together made this document, which essentially brought out the benefits of synergy, the benefits of the merger. That's one part of it. The second part of it was to deal with the employee integration. Part of the problem was made easy for a couple of reasons. One, the government in the scheme itself announced that the amalgamation would take the best of three, and no employee would be worse off than where they are at this point of time. And there would be no retrenchment. That message was emphasized and re-emphasized. That made it easy. And the second part of it is beyond the persona of Vijaya Bank, eDena Bank and Bank of Baroda, there is a persona of public sector bank. And that also helped in contributing to the point. So those are some of the things I'd like to bring out.
So the backdrop clearly is very different for Vaidyanathan. Mr. Vaidyanathan, in your case, you also were merging two very unlike entities. One was an infrastructure bank, or IDFC had a lot of infrastructure, and you were merging it with a retail NBFC. So what were your first processes?
The first thing actually is to set a very harmonious environment. So what we did was that both Dr. Rajiv Lal and myself, when we broadly got through the contours of the deal, in terms of valuation, it's a pretty straight, because there was a market cap of two institutions. We broadly said we'll merge at that price. Capital was at a premium of about 10% or something. But once we agreed on the broad terms and due diligence over and all that, the important thing was how do we present ourselves. So what we did was we took a press conference, a press meeting together. And what that does is that it communicates to employees of both organizations, shareholders of both organizations, regulators, everyone that we're aligned on this issue. So to set up a harmonious environment is really very important.
Okay, but how do you go about communicating? There is always a feeling that the eDena Bank CGM feels that I'm senior to the BOB CGM, and probably I'm going to report to him because I am the smaller bank and BOB is the bigger bank. You may have had these kinds of personnel, grows which may not be even called for, because in your case, it's possible that both of them would have been useful.
Now, the leadership, rank and file of both institutions figured out that I'm going to be the leader in charge of this whole thing. And eventually, how the organization is going to be put together, I'm going to have a strong say in it, and probably I'm going to run the process. So how do you communicate to employees of IDFC Bank side? Because to Capital First employees, I could send a mail. This is going to be the future strategy. How do you communicate to that side without officially writing to them? Because technically you can't write to them.
You cannot write to them.
So what I did was actually I used your channel.
Okay.
To me, it was a golden opportunity. I used the media to communicate over the top, bypassing the email network to that rank and file. It was very effective. Number three, to communicate to people across both institutions verbally, because there may be some technical reasons.
Now, how do you communicate to customers? Because IDFC Bank customers may feel that we may not get a very good hearing if Vaidyanathan is going to be in charge.
It's a very valid question. Not just customers, even employees can feel so. There can be mistrust. So in all these conversations, I always find honesty, simplicity and straightforwardness in communication is extremely powerful. So when we took over, we said, look, both institutions are important and both are bringing significant strengths. One is bringing a banking platform with branches and a liability franchise. One is bringing a full stack lending machine, which can lend 5,000, 4,000 crores, 3,000 crores a quarter or maybe a month. So by being straight and simple, by saying, look, this is going to be a capital first lending model on a bank platform, made it clear to people what we're going to be. Now what that does do, to people who are in the infrastructure, they straight away got the message that it's not the future. So it helped me, because when I later put the pieces, I could tell the infrastructure team, thank you for your work, but it's not the future.
Yeah, either they have to convert themselves into retail bankers or they have to find a place.
Find a place in the system, but most important is simplicity and straightforwardness. People really appreciate it.
But Mr. Rajkiran Rai, you are still young in the process. Now, what were the first tasks you set yourself?
Actually, initially to give a comfort level to all the stakeholders, particularly in our case, it is the customers and the staff. Now, there is a comfort level within the public sector space in every bank. Employees, customers, they are comfortable in their own space. They have built some levels for themselves. Yes. So, it is a disruption. You are suddenly disrupting them. So, communicating very clearly first to the employees and then to the customers is very important. So, and in our case, actually it was a good combination. It was not much of overlap, because we got one Mangalore based bank and one Hyderabad based bank to merge with traditionally North Indian and Western strong bank. So, not much of overlap. That way it was comfortable. But for them from down south, it was seen as a North Indian Hindi speaking bank, and naturally suddenly
actually, let me dwell on that a little more. Is it that different? You know, I was trying to ask people from Indian Bank and Allahabad Bank, because there it looked like north-south to me. But as you say, even in your case, it is Karnataka, Andhra and maybe
yes.
north and west. Is it culturally very different, or is it that everybody is recruited through national exams? So, you know, there are as many Tamils in
yes.
Andhra Bank as there are in Union Bank.
It is only perception. You really see that actually, like there are adequate number of North Indian officers in Andhra Bank, in Corporation Bank, and we have adequate number of South Indian staff working with us. Because of this national recruitment, actually, already this public sector, which was region specific in recruitment, that is already gone in last 20-25 years. So, this is only perception. But yes, customer has a real issue. When we go about addressing these staff related issues by way of town hall meetings. Actually, 3 MDs we have come together. We already had 3 town hall meetings, and we are going to have few more at major centers where we address.
So you think customers are you know, an Andhra Bank customer would get upset?
Yes. So this is actually we had a first-hand experience of that when we went to Hyderabad and Vijayawada, which are the core areas of Andhra Bank actually. So the customers are really worried. Their worry is particularly in the middle space. They always say that okay, I am a 100 crore customer. So now my headquarters was in Hyderabad. I could walk into MD's cabin and get my work done. Now I may have to come to Bombay. I may not be even recognized
and 100 crore
there.
is not very big.
Not very big for a combined entity. So this is a thing actually which you need to address actually. So we communicated to the customers. It is not going to be any different. Actually, the administrative layers will be built in such a way. So those issues of a customer will be addressed. And there are a lot of sentimental issues also. It is not only the business. There are a lot of sentimental issues. If you take particularly Andhra, It's a great founder, Patabi Sitaramaya, who is a freedom fighter, and the bank is actually.
So even now,
yeah.
people think in terms of a Telugu Atma Gauravam or something like that?
Yes, those feelings are very much there with the customers. It came out very strongly, and it's a very sentimental issue. I think as we go along, we need to address, we need to learn how to respect their sentiment and keep that brand. Actually, see, it is to our advantage for the combined entity.
Let me get that from Jayakumar. Did you get that feeling that eDena Bank or Vijaya Bank had customers who felt slighted and employees who felt their culture will get smothered?
From a eDena Bank perspective, it was in the PCA stage. There was practically no further lending. So this would then resume the lending relationships for them. So that part of it was
positive.
That for that part of it was quite simple, right? Here there were some.
It was a good bank,
right? But here there were certainly some concerns. Two things happened. One was the way our board is being set up now, as one board member from eDena and one from Vijaya Bank. And there's a continuity of relationship with the customer in that sense. And then the holding town halls and other ways of reaching out as a second thing, but also bringing in the fact that we could provide foreign currency loan, we could do this, we could do that more, was also useful. But even now, you have to continue to stay focused on the customers, especially in Bangalore Vijaya Bank, because earlier Vijaya Bank, because and that consistency of communication has to be kept. They do come back to us and say, the documentation we had then was simpler, the documentation is much bigger now, or various kinds of stuff, right? Your credit score cutoff is different than what it was, etc. So we have to maintain that relationship, and I think it will take a little while before that identity and that moves away.
Okay.
See, Lata, one question. Yes. See, the main thing, Lata, in all these situations is sensitivity. It's very important. For example, in our case, it is it's pretty straight to me that we're not going to do infrastructure. But you don't call the team straight away, I'm not going to do infrastructure tomorrow. You can be straight, but you have to be sensitive. It's more important. So how do you communicate? So we put together, say, town hall meetings. Let me say, bring the top 200 people or 400 people of the organization, 40 people of the organization together, then a larger team, and talk to them at length, hear out the concerns. So some people say, do I have a relevance in the, some people of infrastructure just said, do I have a relevance anymore in the organization? Of course, you can't lie to them and say, no, you're very important. But at the same time, you say, look, why don't you find an opportunity? We give you a time to figure this piece out. Broking was the other hard call we had to take. So investment banking, I didn't want to do that. So how do you tell the team that you're not the future? So I feel we took all these calls at the right time, talk to people sensitively and sweetly, but we have to say what we have to say.
Okay, actually you're giving me the next question. What are the toughest things you have to do when you merge? That question to our experts after a break. Welcome back to our special series, Financing the Future. We are discussing with three important bankers in the country how to prepare for a bank amalgamation. Two of them have been there, done that. The other one, Mr. Rajkiran Rai from Union Bank, is in the throes of a merger right now as we speak. Okay, now what I want to ask you all is, what are the toughest tasks when you get into an amalgamation? I mean, convincing customers and convincing employees are still soft skills. What is the toughest job, Mr. Jayakumar?
I think the toughest part is conceptually everything is fine. It's the execution at all levels that matters. And one of the other things that had to get done in this process was to get Bank of Baroda employees to be what shall I say, humble, to be very sensitive and be welcoming to the two banks. And I think that part of it was done very well, which is part of the reason why the whole process went well. And when I turned back and asked a couple of people in Vijaya Bank and eDena Bank that our exercise has gone well, why do you think, what made it well? One of the things was, yes, we were welcomed, and that's very, very critical, I think, in the scheme of things. And some of the things we did, ran a program around what is our common vision, what is our value systems, recoded them, and then in the first letter post the amalgamation, we had to actually sign, they had to sign a new contract. There was a welcome letter re-emphasizing value systems, re-emphasizing communication. And we also made the decision of having the head of Vijaya Bank HR be the head of the combined HR. So there is all these things were done, and when you do all of these things in a very calibrated way, make sure the best people come in, things move along quietly from there.
Vaidyanathan, what was your toughest challenge?
There's a concern that is Capital First acquiring IDFC Bank. because I'm the head of the bank and
Of the merged entity.
Of the merged entity. So therefore, I'm in a position to call the shots. So I made it very clear to a larger team of organization, not just one side, saying that look, everybody's my friend and nobody's my friend.
Okay.
So basically, in this role of figuring out who will be the new organization, only talent, only merit, only alignment, only culture will prevail. And the way we did it is that I now found a new pole star. So I said customer is the pole star. The point I'm trying to say is that if I found a new pole star and I said customer comes first, even everybody
that blends everyone to one
employees
whole.
also come second, customer comes first. I think it tremendously helped us.
Okay. Oh yes. So getting a common pole star.
Common pole star.
Okay. At the moment, what is your toughest challenge?
I think the first challenge what we face is communication. So that is one part actually. Once you do that, then creating the teams actually. So now actually, because even though the public sector banks look similar, when you get down to really jotting down what they do, they are really different. So there are 30 teams, core teams, which are drawn from 3 banks actually. There are two people drawn from each bank and the 6 people team. Like that 30 teams are working.
So what, it would be treasury team?
Yes.
Core banking team?
Core banking
corporate
team,
banking
yeah,
team?
retail, like different, even product wise, because ultimately in another 2 months, we need to create the documents that how the common entity will run and which are the products. We can't have 3 different products running simultaneously. So we need to understand which product, then we need to give enough time to the technology team to build the technology around that, so that when we become a merged entity, we have a common product running, common processes running. So these are the challenges actually, and execution also. And when we create these teams, we need to be very sensitive to balance it, because there are certain areas where Andhra Bank has strength, there are certain areas where Corporation Bank has strength. So we need to keep all this in mind, and from the beginning actually we are making it very clear that it is not acquisition, it is a merger of 3 entities, and the synergies of all the 3 has to come together to create a bigger entity, larger entity.
Let me ask you, Mr. Jayakumar, what was surprisingly easy? What did you think, my God, how will I tackle this? And it turned out to be easy.
I think overall the process went quite smoothly and very without any noise, and in a kind of an easy manner.
Bad press, I will have to say that.
I think it's not so much a surprise as much as a relief, I would say, that things had gone well. Yes.
What was your biggest surprise?
Many people warned me while the merger process is going on that the day you switch on the button on merger, you have a lot of customers calling your call center going to be jammed and your systems may not work, and it's a real issue, by the way, right? We really did a very meticulous planning to that D-Day, and nothing. And in fact, while we were thinking merger is coming somewhere in January or end of December something, suddenly actually we went to RBI one day and took a particular clarification around the 14th or 15th of the month, and we were clear that it's happening on the 18th. So what we thought we had a month, we suddenly turned out to be 4 days. So those 4 days were literally like a panic time, but it really worked very well.
I want Mr. Jayakumar and Vaidyanathan to tell Rajkiran what is the one advice you will give him, because he's in the throes of a merger. So one sentence advice from both of you. And Mr. Rai, I'm going to start with you. What is the one question you want to ask them?
Yeah, I would like to ask Mr. Jayakumar that how he handled the employee sentiment.
I think there are a number of things we need to do to get this communication exercise. It starts with the 3 of you being seen in every forum as being aligned. It also requires a lot of effort on the part of the other 2 bank CEO to step up and support this. The credibility comes more from when Shankar Nanan speaks to Vijaya Bank and Karnam Shekhar speaks to eDena Bank. That's where the point of credibility lies. And the personal chemistry, people watch for that. That is very, very critical. So I get back to its communication part. I don't think the work is ever going to come to a closure. It's one wave after the other. So you first deal with the first wave of getting people on board.
Okay.
And I think the way you work with your co-CEOs is going to make a lot of difference.
One word of advice, Mr. Vaidyanathan.
The first thing is, of course, to be aligned together as a senior management. It's very critical. People down the line will see through it if you are misaligned. To appreciate the strength of what other people bring. People want to be appreciated. I think it's very important. And second thing is that people see through sincerity. there is a way of political way of saying things, and there is a sincerity in the heart and communication. I think people see through it, and I hope you'll do a good job on that front.
My question to Vaidyanathan was different.
Yes.
I just want to
What
add
can be the vision statement for merged entity?
So in our case, we made it pretty straight. We want to build the world's best bank for emerging entrepreneurs and consumers. Once you, that's
So it was
vision.
retail and
Yeah,
SME.
it's retail. So once you say it, then it becomes easy, because the toughest thing is to say it, because you're going to antagonize someone's going to be troubled, etc. But just say it, when you're in trouble, just say it as truthfully as it comes. Then the system aligns to it and then gets on with it. In my case, that's frankly the biggest strength I had, and the biggest value I got was just say it.
Everything you do is important. The way if you say everybody is equal, the way the brand is presented should reflect the same. Also, how do you come with a campaign at the end of the that is very important. In our case, it's relatively easy because we came first, and so whatever position we take was we had more choices than you would have, because we've taken one of them, and our position is from good to better, which is both for the employees and for the customer. Yes. For the employees, more options, more choices, good to better, and for the customers, more product opportunity. So that campaign and all of that stuff is very critical. I think getting that right and getting that warm is very important.
I want to add one point to this. Either to find, to be of course sincere, but also to find a inspiring vision, I think is very powerful.
Gentlemen, it's been a pleasure listening to all three of you on how mergers have been done and how they need to be done. Thank you very much for watching this very special show.